everyone, how is it going? It's the Fuzz. It's time for another reveal. This time, we've got 4 cards because there were 2 reveals next to each other, and I wasn't able to do the Shrinings reveals before mine came about, so we're just gonna cover 4 cards right away, starting with Amalric the Hero. The New Order hero, also the hero you'll be using in the campaign, presumably. It fits right in the middle, right where Hermelian you'd think would be. You know, 2 aspect, 1 generic, 2 mana, and it gives 2 of your creatures extra attack and protected. Protected means the same thing as Namir's Blessing, that is, it can't be targeted by your enemy. That's pretty cool. And cannot be damaged until the start of your next turn. So you basically play this, protect 2 creatures, you can get free trades because they're shielded, they can't be hurt, and then on your next turn, they're still protected from damage. So it seems like a really solid hero. Should work pretty well with the whole Valor theme. You put the strong creatures on the board, and then you use Amalric to protect them. It seems pretty strong. Similarly to Hermelian, it's a bit on the win more side, but it's a bit more flexible than Hermelian because you can actually trade up because you're gaining attack and protection. So you don't get 2 attacks, but you get better attacks, and your guys remain protected throughout your turn. It's going to be really good, and for only 2 mana, I mean, you could play this as early as turn 3 to buff an Elf Warrior to kill something for free, and then the Elf Warrior remains a 3/2, you know, during your opponent's turn, and it's protected from damage, so should be pretty good. I'm sure it'll see play, it'll be tried out. What's nice about this guy is that he seems more like a generalist hero, whereas you look at the other 3 Order heroes, Basic Alexa only works in Soldiers, Advanced Alexa only works in Angels. Hermelian is, you know, double Order, so you can't as easily splash him, although, as you'll see with the next card, splashing Hermelian might be easier than before. So Amalric's gonna fit right in. In Draft and Trials, it should be a solid hero, because you can definitely make some use out of this. You have to have a board, but if you do, you can, you know, make really good use of it. It kind of feels like the opposite of Burke. Burke removes creatures. This guy protects your creatures. Should be, I think, fairly competitive in Limited. Oh, I can't wait to try him out. Next up, Trigon of the Pact. So this is the card everyone's been excited about. It's a shrine spell. So it's a shrine in that you can go for one of the 3 aspects. Now, this introduces 2 new ideas. First up, we have the dual aspect, where as you can see, you can pick either Order Wisdom, Order Nature, or Wisdom Nature. And how I believe it will work is that if you pick one of those, you'll have one of them, and you can use that aspect for either of the 2 colors. But you are still only have 1 aspect. So if you play this on turn 1, you can't play a 2-aspect creature afterwards. That would be insane. It would be like Ramp. But it's still really good because it'll allow you to play like a 3-color deck, which is 2-aspect. You play this on turn 1, you know, pick 2 of the 3 colors, and then use your next shrine to fill in the 3rd, and you're good. And hey, there's a bonus. You can also play it as a blessing. 2 mana blessing gives your creature +1 attack, health, and speed. That's pretty decent. It's not like an amazing blessing, but it's solid. And I mean, it's in addition to being able to splash, right? Because it's a blessing, it can be searched out by Field OP. Because it's a spell, it can be searched out by Jin. And the Sunblessed Emissary should also work with it. So this card looks like it's got everything going for it. And is it gonna see play? Of course it's gonna see play. It's a shrine that can go for multiple colors. That's incredible. I assume you can't New Horizons this. I don't actually know, but I assume, because that seems like it would be broken. If you could just go Wisdom and then search this out and get Order and Nature, and you'd have like 3 color instantly. That seems a little bit too good. I'm gonna assume you can't. And of course in Limited you're not gonna see this much because it's epic. So yeah, and I mean, if you see an epic, you probably wouldn't pick this, I don't think. It's a very specific card, but I imagine it'll definitely see play because it fits in. This expansion focuses on the good aspects. This shrine lets you like multi-color very easily, and it even has a secondary effect which can also benefit these decks if you're running the blessing theme. This card is the beginning of something new. and it looks good. The idea of having a shrine that also doubles as something else is an idea that was thought of in the custom card contest too, where they had like shrines being able to become creatures. I think this is a great card, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the evil version of this is once we get to that. And then the 2 cards that the shrining revealed, which I didn't get a chance to cover, both Wisdom. Timea, the Magi Wanderer, so this is the Wisdom Valor card. 1/2 with 3 speed, and then it's Valor 2, so she's going to buff herself, most likely being basically a 2/3 with 3 speed. Solid, and then giving something else, a Might Emblem. And then, whenever a creature that you have with a Might Emblem deals damage to the enemy hero, you can draw a card and move that emblem onto Timea. So the dream is, you play Timea, you buff another creature, that creature hits face, you draw a card, and Timea is now a 3/4. Oh, the real dream is that Timea buffs 2 of your creatures, they both hit face, and then you draw 2 cards, and then the buffs go to Timea. If that's the case, it's kind of like a super library guards, but not quite, because you do have to set up before, and you have to be able to hit face. But just the fact that it's at worst a 2/3 body that buffs another creature by +1/+1 seems like a really solid card. If the Valor deck ends up becoming like 3 aspect, then I'm sure you'll run this. It's just more source of Valor. It's a source of card draw as well. If you're playing a bunch of Valor cards, of course you can have Might Emblems on other creatures. So yeah, I expect Timea will definitely find her way into a Valor deck just for extra card draw. And it's just like a solid card, and further reinforcing the Valor synergy. And Limited, it's decent, because again, at worst, it's like a 2/3, that if you have another creature, give that a buff. Actually, if you think of it that way, that's actually pretty good, because it's like a Cavalry Field Captain. Not quite as good, but similar. And that's at worst. Well, at worst is a 2/3 with 3 speed. But even that isn't that bad. So yeah, good card. And the next one is easily my favorite card so far, Parallel Evolution. Oh man, I like screamed in joy when I saw this card, because it introduces basically a polymorph effect into Wisdom, which is something I think they should have had. So what can you do with this? You can transform an allied creature into a copy of an enemy creature, or an enemy creature into an allied creature, and you draw a card. So what are some fun things you can do with this? You can transform an enemy creature into a Void Touch subordinate, which they can't probably use because they don't have corruption. It'll mill them. That's nice. You can transform enemy stuff into like drones, and if your opponent plays big cards, you can just transform garbage into big cards. And it draws a card. The card seems incredibly good. I think even if it didn't draw a card, it would still be like solid. It's a very interesting card. But because it does, just like Power Discharge, it's likely to become a staple, right? Although, unlike Power Discharge, you do have to kind of set it up, because in Power Discharge, you can just play any time to do something. Whereas with this, you know, you have to have like a small creature on the board or something like that, or your opponent has to have a big creature so you can copy it. But it seems like there's a lot of possibilities with this one. I'm sure people will come up with something amusing. One concern regarding this card was with the Haunt. There's currently some loops where if you put Haunt on something like Ancestor's Guide, it starts triggering infinitely because you sacrifice a creature. The Haunt triggers because the Ancestor Guide triggers, giving you an Enchained Soul, which you can then sacrifice to trigger it to summon an Enchained Soul. And because there's no mana cost, you can just do this like 20 times and gain 20 life and win with 40 life. So with Parallel Evolution, you can actually give your opponent an Ancestor's Guide by playing one. You Parallel Evolution something else into Ancestor's Guide, then you Haunt the enemy Ancestor's Guide, and as soon as one of your creatures dies, you win the game, right? So that's a little cheesy, and I'm hoping that that just gets fixed. I'm actually kind of hoping Haunt just gets redesigned, because so far, all Haunt has done is create like these bad scenarios. Like, it's just a magnet for brokenness, so hopefully that gets changed. Anyways, Parallel Evolution in Limited is going to be a great card, because it's like removal basically, and you'll always have some garbage to transform, and yeah, it's just gonna be great. So yeah, that's 8 cards we have so far. Pretty good, honestly. We still have another 7 or 8. I don't know if the Shrine counts as a card or not. We'll have to see. And so far they've all been pretty good, maybe with the exception of the 1 mana guy that just gives 1 Valor trigger. But even that guy is like decent and probably playable in the Valor deck. So looks like we're gonna have nothing but high quality, high impact cards enter the game in just a few days, and that's gonna be awesome. So looking forward to those. Looking forward to trying out this dude, because you know, a new hero is always something exciting. It's much more than just a new card, because it could create a new deck type, for instance. Although Amalric doesn't necessarily lend themselves to a specific type like Alexa, but it's solid enough and gives Order players some new ways to play. We'll have to see. Though I feel I should mention that my concern still remains regarding the whole snowbally nature of these cards, because Amalric is just another way to protect your cards. Like, if you protected the Triangelica Sentinel, it is now impossible to damage, impossible to target, and it cannot be removed by AoE. It's almost impossible to kill. So I think with the buff patch, we're gonna have to shore up some weaknesses, like improve removal so that removal can keep up, and probably do something about Reflector, because Reflector is always the kind of card that can make removal cards like bad, as in bad for the game, because if removal is efficient, then with Reflector it becomes even more efficient, you know what I mean? And probably just do away with one turn heal, because that's a cancerous deck. And of course this card is the big winner, I think, of cards that'll enable new things you can do in Spellweaver. I think you could even just use this to splash like an extra aspect into something like Hermelian Priest, because you could just play one Order aspect and then play this, and you have like 2 Order and 1 Wisdom. You know, you can still play all your stuff like normal, but you have access to Wisdom, maybe to run Soluxio, for instance. Angels can now splash Soluxio and not have to make their other cards worse, because the reason you run mono orders is because it let you play Spell Warden on curve, right? And it made Word of Grace better, although Word of Grace has been nerfed a bit, so it's mostly for Spell Warden. Yeah, that's gonna be that. This card is also gonna enable a lot of stuff, and because of this card, I feel like the good aligned, I mean, it's all the cards combined, but especially this one, the good aligned aspects are definitely the strong ones, and I feel Rage is gonna see very little to no play, because they're gonna have a very hard time dealing with like giant shooting sprouts and stuff like that, unless their removal gets buffed as well. And yeah, zombies are not looking pretty right now, although I suppose you could try combining zombies with Valor, but why not just run more Valor cards? We'll have to see what the other 8 or 7 cards are to know for sure, but I imagine they're just going to further reinforce this idea that it's gonna be time for the good guys to shine until the evil expansion comes along, and then the balance will be restored, and then we'll see what kind of delicious things evil guys have in store for us. I'm sure they're gonna be awesome. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.